Hello there. Welcome back to a long form video. Hopefully you can hear me and everything is going well with each of you. Today we're going to be talking about and discussing a very bizarre, just disgusting news story that came out yesterday, January 9th, 2026. I mean, it's only 10 days into the new year and we're coming into some really, really whew, crazy things. So let's get into it and find out what we are indeed talking about. All right. So I'm hopeful that this is going to show in the right way. I'm really hopeful. So here we go. Let's take a listen and find out what is going on.
Just when you think you've heard it all, this case out of Delaware County might make your stomach turn. Prosecutors are accusing a man of stealing dozens of sets of human remains. This is the 10 o'clock news. I'm Jason Martinez.
I'm Sheba Russell. Investigators say they found human skulls, mummified feet, and decomposing body parts at the suspect's home. Chris O'Connell has more on the story that is disturbing on so many levels.
Delaware County prosecutors say he was a real-life grave robber straight out of a horror movie. A man arrested for stealing human remains from graves, some as young as infants, others 200 years old.
Very simply, detectives walked into a horror movie come to life the other night.
Delaware County District Attorney Tanner Rouse outlining the twisted alleged crimes of 34-year-old Jonathan Gerlach of Lancaster County. He's accused of stealing human remains from 26 mausoleums and underground graves at the historic Mount Moriah Cemetery in Yeadon. Some of the remains as young as infants.
Oh my God.
Some of these are 200 years old. Some of them obviously much newer. There's one that had a pacemaker still attached to the body.
Prosecutors say it was old-fashioned police work that cracked the case. After a series of grave desecrations at Mount Moriah, Yeadon police set up a sting. On Tuesday, Gerlach was arrested at the cemetery with a burlap bag full of 30 human remains, many of them children. But when police searched Gerlach's home in Ephrata, Lancaster County, they found more than 100 human skulls, large bones, and other.
Wait, he walked out of there with human remains in a burlap bag? Like, aren't those the kind of bags that, like, at the county fairs you ride down those huge slides in? So he just took whatever tools, a crowbar, screwdriver, dug up these bodies of people's loved ones and put them in a potato sack.
Skeletal remains as well as jewelry taken from graves. 8 more skeletons were found in a nearby storage locker.
Detectives have recovered an awful lot of bones at this point, and we are still trying to piece together who they are, where they are from, and how many we are looking at, and it's going to be quite some time before we have a final answer.
Those who walked through the cemetery near Cobbs Creek Park recently noticed graves being desecrated. One guy tells us this mausoleum was repaired just after it was burglarized.
We saw some graves that had been obviously opened or disturbed. Kind of hoped it was just maintenance work and stuff, but always suspected it might be some kind of, grave robbing, for lack of a better term.
Gerlach is charged with more than 450 counts on charges of burglary, abuse of corpse, and theft. Authorities are not clear what he was doing with the remains, but they are looking at a Facebook group devoted to the sale of human bones, where Gerlach was seen holding several skulls. The Delaware and Lancaster County medical examiners are now trying to date and identify all of the remains and possibly find affected families.
We all have loved ones that passed. Like, rest in peace is rest in peace. And this is definitely something that tears at your heartstrings.
Gerlach is being held in the Delaware County Jail on $1 million cash bail. Prosecutors say there's a very good chance he may have burglarized other local cemeteries. In Yaden, Chris O'Connell, Fox 29 News.
Just when you think.
Literally, just when you think things could not get worse. And I just am flabbergasted that this is an actual industry of, body broking, organ broking, skin broking, all of the things. Like I'm in over my head with this news. Let's watch a second video that kind of gives further detail and the developments that the story is as the story is developing. This gives a little bit more details.
We have new details in that gruesome case where a man was arrested and charged with burglarizing graves and storing remains in his home and storage unit. Chris O'Connell, you've been following this story since it broke. What are police saying?
Oh, Jason, police think that Jonathan Gerlach was selling at least some of those human remains online. Investigators say he had collected a trove of human skulls, skeletons, and bones, including full corpses hanging from his basement ceiling.
I never thought I would see this in my life. It was an experience that you really don't want to relive.
The Yaden police chief says he's seen a lot in his career, but nothing like what he saw when he walked into the home of accused grave robber Jonathan Gerlach. He was one of the first inside of Gerlach's Ephrata home when they discovered more than 100 human remains of people who have died decades, even centuries ago. Investigators and medical examiners were back at the property today. They say 8 more bodies were found at a nearby storage locker.
They were basically on display. There was some stuff in boxes, but most of the stuff was on display.
According to newly released affidavits, police say Gerlach used crowbars and screwdrivers to break into dozens of mausoleums and underground burial vaults on both the Yaden and Philadelphia sides of the historic Mount Moriah Cemetery. You can actually see where some of the stones were moved and vaults burglarized. 2 corpses stolen from this grave, 7 sets of remains stolen from this family plot. All of the remains were from those who died many years ago, but some as young as infants. Descendants of family members buried here are sickened.
It's yucky. I mean, anybody finding out, we think that, we're going to rest in peace and be okay there. And I mean, it's their landing space of their body, not their soul. So there's peace in that.
Neighbors at Gerlach's Ephrata home started to get suspicious when they started noticing flies around the window.
It was more than 5. It was at least 20, 30 on each window. I figured it was a garage that they were getting in through somewhere and they couldn't get out. And now finding out that there was all those remains in there, it makes sense.
Investigators are trying to figure out if other cemeteries were hit. In December, a tip came into police about a grave robber in Luzerne County. A tipster told police they recently discovered a partially decomposed corpse hanging from Gerlach's basement. They also say he disappeared for a few days and mentioned that he had been in Chicago selling a human skull. Police are looking into a Facebook page devoted to selling human remains. Investigators wonder how long it's been going on or what else they may find.
What could this evolve to next? You're collecting human remains. What's the next step in the evolution of this? And that's something that, hopefully we will find out why.
Now, Gerlach remains in the Delaware County Jail on $1 million cash bail. Investigators are now trying to connect loved ones with their family members' remains, but since all of them died many, many years ago, Dawn, they understand it is going to be a challenge.
No doubt, Chris, and so disturbing. Thank you, Chris.
We have new details.
Disturbing is an understatement in all of this. Absolutely horrendous. This is going to take months for them to kind of put all of these bodies together to notify if there's any living family members. I mean, this is just horrible. I put myself in the loved one's shoes and think like, man, if, whew, Whew, I don't even want to think about it. If I was told that this had happened to any of my loved ones or anyone that I, have buried, I would be beyond upset, angry. I wouldn't even know how to kind of proceed legally to even deal with any of that. So when you're looking at this entire ordeal, one of the things that has to be understood is that this is literally a for-profit business. People are using the theft of human remains for profit. It's a highly profitable criminal business. And unfortunately, these people are called body brokers, organ brokers, and the saddest, I think the saddest part about all of this and the most disturbing part about all of this is that there's an actual market for these things. There's an actual market for people's organs, people's skin, people, alive or dead. I mean, it is alive or unalived, rather, excuse me. It's making me stutter, but it's an industry in the United States and it's an industry worldwide that is not really talked about because it's so gruesome. But there's been a case, several different cases actually in the United States. There's one from Harvard Medical School where a morgue was burglarized. And this is the story. It says the former manager of the Harvard Medical School morgue named Cedric Lodge and his wife, Denise Lodge, they pleaded guilty to stealing and selling body parts, including heads, brains, and skin, which were intended for donation to science. So they stole them to sell them to make profit. Several other people involved in that multi-state network have also been sentenced for their roles in buying and selling those stolen remains. This is why I do not check to be a donor at all on my driver license. I don't want my, I just don't. Anyway, in Pennsylvania, a man named Jeremy Pauley was sentenced to 6 years in prison for his role in the network, which did involve buying and selling remains via online platforms like Facebook. He purchased the remains from multiple sources, including the Harvard case and an Arkansas crematorium employee. The next one is from Arkansas. This crematorium employee was named Candace Chapman Scott. She was a former employee at an Arkansas mortuary. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison for stealing remains and fetal parts that were meant for cremation and burial and selling them to Pauley. I don't get it. It's above me. It's beyond me. It's beneath me. It's gross. Now, this current grave robber named Jonathan Gerlach was arrested in Pennsylvania for allegedly stealing more than 100 sets of human meringue. Why do I keep wanting to say human meringue? Human remains, including skulls and mummified feet and hands from cemeteries, and admitting to it. And he also admitted to selling these body remains online in an open platform so brazenly as to go on Facebook and sell these remains on Facebook. This industry called body brokering is very unregulated in the United States. It's a for-profit business. They acquire, dissect, and sell human bodies and parts for not only medical purposes, for supposed educational purposes, but also evidently for nefarious purposes. What in God's name does someone have to do with a bag of skin from a person? Why? Okay. There's so many reasons. I don't even want to get into any conspiracies, but nonetheless, I digress. There is a federal lack of oversight So unlike the highly regulated organ transplant system, the sale of bodies and parts for research and education has no federal regulation, and this creates a legal gray area. There is a profit motive, so one single body can generate up to $10,000 in the form of individuals' parts sold to universities and medical engineering firms, and evidently to just random people online on Facebook, and probably on the DARKWEB too. Exploitation of donors. So the system can be exploited, with some brokers accused of disrespecting the dead and misleading vulnerable families to believe that they are making a selfless donation to science, often in exchange for a free or reduced cost cremation. Unbelievable. So we're going to watch one more video, and then we're going to just kind of get up out of here, because this is really, really, really sad and disturbing. But I did want to kind of, bring awareness, I guess, or just talk about it in a long form video, because it's just gross. So this is the last video. Hopefully you can hear the audio, and
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to 21 Next on Friday, January 9th. We're talking about a pretty crazy story. A man who is storing human remains in Ephrata. He has been charged now, and now we know more about him because of a search warrant. So I want to bring in Lily Sexton, who actually went through that search warrant today and can share more details with us. Lily, what did you learn about the case after going through the search warrant, about storage of the remains, the sale of the remains? What can you tell us?
So the search warrant really broke down all the evidence that they had against him leading up to when they were able to actually enter his home. And they said that he was going to the cemetery, which he robbed outside, is accused of robbing outside of Philadelphia multiple times. It was not just on one occasion did he steal all these bodies. He was going back. They also described all of the evidence that he was leaving on the scene at each time, some of it being DNA evidence like cigarette butts and energy drinks that he left behind, other times tools that he left behind that he was potentially using to break into the cemetery and actually steal things in the grave. They also broke down evidence they had against him in terms of what he was posting on social media. They said that he was likely also selling body parts, according to the document. They found Facebook posts that included people thanking him for the human skin bag that they purchased from him, as well as they also described all of the items that they found, in like hundreds of skulls, in addition to 2 torsos that he's accused of stealing from that cemetery.
And Lily, you mentioned that some of them were sold, but some of them weren't. Do you know more about that? How specifically those were sold, if they were sold online, or how that happened?
They have evidence with his Cash App that he was using his Cash App most likely for the sales and purchases of the body parts. We don't know exactly how much he sold online, but we do, according to the documents at least, think that he wasn't just robbing the graves and keeping everything. He was also turning it into a business and selling some of the items.
Wow, yeah, interesting. And so we know that there's no real motive at this time, but I want to bring in Maxine Rose because she dived a little bit deeper today to learn more about Jonathan Gerlach and about what we know about him leading up to this. So Maxine, what can you tell us? I know that you've been in the neighborhood of his Ephrata home where some of these remains were stored. What did you learn?
Yeah, Alex. So I spoke with a person who claims to have been, a close friend of Jonathan Gerlach. He says he hasn't spoken with him in roughly, 5 to 8 years. He says he can't really remember, but he spent a lot of time, especially in his youth, in a band, in his teens, really talking with Jonathan Gerlach between the shows, after the shows, hanging out with him. He says he was a really nice empathetic guy. He says that he seemed pretty normal for the most part. Yeah, that's him right there. You can see. And that really, he just seemed like someone who was like everybody else in the heavy metal community, just just wanting to kind of enjoy life, and had deep conversations, but with being in the heavy metal community, this guy did tell me today, sometimes people are interested in oddities or maybe darker types of things. But what's interesting here is that this guy tells me today, like, he Jonathan Gerlach never said anything about liking oddities this much. So all of this is really coming as a shock to friends and people who knew him, people who came into passing. We've seen on social media so many people just saying how much this has shocked them, having come into contact with him either while he's walking his dog outside, or knowing someone who worked with him, or seeing him with his band performing as a lyricist and vocalist for his band in this area, and also the Williamsport area.
And so I know, Maxine, that you were also there yesterday and you were back in Ephrata today. Have you noticed law enforcement there, or, crime scene units there, anybody there who's been investigating, looking into this home at all? Have you seen anything that you can share with people?
What I can share, yes, is that there have been police here, just like we saw last night. And I mentioned at the end of my story last night, is that you can see that there was a police officer that, well, you can't see it now, but there was a kind of white car off to the side there that was there for hours yesterday. And there, like, you can see the top of it right there. That was it just sitting in the corner. They're kind of blocking where that garage was, and where witnesses had told me they had seen investigators initially just come right in and start taking boxes out. You could see in one of those frames there, they kind of hit it with that white sheet, but we did get a second. There it is, a few boxes stacked right up. And from our understanding, they're continuing to take evidence out of that home.
And from your understanding, I'm not sure if you know this, where is Jonathan Gerlach now? Do we know?
Well, he does have $1 million bond, I do believe. So he is currently in, I believe, the Lancaster County prison. Either way, he is not out and about at this point. Witnesses, neighbors here tell me they saw him get escorted out earlier this week of this home here. We are also under the impression that he was living with someone else. We have not seen that person. We have not heard from that person. We have not seen whether there are even any charges against this person. But of course, there's so much more to this story, Alex, that we are not, privy to just yet. And hopefully, as this develops, we'll be able to learn more.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Maxine. And if you guys want to see more about what this story has developed over the course of the past 2 days, be sure to tune in tonight on CBS 21 at 5, 5:30, and 6. Maxine and Lily will be breaking down more details about what they found out today. And thank you so much for joining 21 Next. We will see you tomorrow and next week.
Okay. Oh, my stomach is growling. I believe she said that he's in what is it? Lakeside County Prison? Lakeside Correctional Facility, I'm guessing. It sounded like she said Lakeside, but I don't know if that is the real name. I think she meant to say Lakeside Correctional Facility in Pennsylvania. But when you're looking at people like this, there's always, okay, we can't really say always or never, but usually there is some sort of traceable pathology when we're looking at and trying to understand people that are into certain things. Now, what this lady I don't want to say this lady. That's kind of disrespectful. What this reporter indicated is that this person is into, what did she say? Dark things, heavy metal music, so forth and so on. And I find it interesting because she said that people that knew this person weren't aware that he was into certain oddities. When you think of oddities, like typically, you just think of like different hobbies, like reading different forms of literature or the study of classical music, or you know what I'm saying? Just things that people are not a whole lot of people are really, really into. It's a special thing that people take interest in. But with this particular person, he apparently was into the dark things, like dark oddities. So, I mean, and that's kind of typical for people that are into dark music or heavy metal music. They're often into things like horror or fantasy or Tolkien or the occult, certain things like that. They like to explore darker themes like alienation, suicide. Oh, I can't say solitude, unalivement, societal rebellion. They like to explore these things through different music, imagery, and they find a sort of catharsis and a sense of belonging in these subgenres. The fascination, it says, ranges from grotesque or gory unalivement metal music to melancholic doom or anti-Christian, often referred to as black metal, often using these elements to process real world feelings rather than like literal devil worship or Satanism. Other oddities or dark oddities that people in this category might be into are things like horror and gore. We already talked about having a deep appreciation for horror fiction or movies or grotesque imagery often explored in unalive metal music. I can't say the other word. They're into fantasy and mythology, the occult and Satanism, aesthetic and philosophical things, shock value, anti-authoritarianism, and even darker philosophies like literal devil worship or not literal devil worship. Okay, so it's just really interesting. People, like in this category, find a community, I guess, in some of these types of interests that they are bonded with other individuals in or with. All right. So I don't want to dive deep into this black hole, but I just do want to recap some of the things that we discussed, and then we're going to get up out of here. So essentially, police walked into a house of horrors. I mean, there were literally corpses hanging from the basement ceiling. Yuck. Apparently, there was someone else living there that has all of a sudden vanished. I mean, was he one of the bodies? I mean, we don't know. We don't know. And what is the condition of the inside of this residence? I mean, one of the neighbors said that he saw upwards of 20-something flies just hanging out on the window, and he thought they were coming from outside. Actually and factually, they were probably birthed from maggots living inside the residence. What other infestations were apparent in this home? There's got to be more networks with this Facebook group that I'm not going to go on Facebook and try to look up anything like that because I don't want anything to do with that. I'm just a fake reporter. But there's got to be more like connections in this Facebook market. Why are people on Facebook buying skin bags? You know what I'm saying? This is I I mean, is there substance use involved here? You know, is there DRUG use that we haven't been told about? I mean, I'm just asking, you know? But this is more than just having a fetish or having a liking for oddities, okay? This is way more than that. So I want to hear what you guys have to say. Just to recap, this guy, Jonathan Gerlach, he's been detained, arrested for 450 counts of nefarious activities with human remains, including robbing grave sites, more mausoleums, and keeping these remains in his home, carrying them off the grave sites in a freaking potato sack, burlap bag. Okay, burlap and Gerlach. I mean, they kind of rhyme. So you know, he is being held on $1 million cash bail. It's going to take a long time for the police department and whoever else, the coroner, whoever else has to work this case. It's going to take them a long time to put the remains together, to identify the bodies, and to, more importantly, notify families if there's any families that are still alive. It's a really sad case. They're going to have to make contact with those loved ones and give them this horrible news. But anywho, 10 days into the new year, and we're coming out with this. So let everything in the dark be brought to light. Okay, even the most heinous and most disgusting things that we could never even imagine or think of. But with that said, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you. And I look forward to reading your comments and seeing you back in the next video. Bye-bye now.